Soul Finder Podcast, KathyDCarter.com. These are always so much fun to record with Kathy. This is Friedo, and what I want to talk to you about today, Kathy, is life-changing events. And I'm not talking about a fender bender.
Okay.
I'm talking about an event that an extreme event would be like getting paralyzed, or
Okay.
you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Am I making myself clear?
Yes.
That forces you to change and may or may not, I'm going to find out through you, kind of force you to move your frequency along.
Okay.
Maybe it doesn't. But the way people respond to life-changing events can either be a very positive or a very, very negative way.
Yes. Yes. And I have life examples of my own. It is a choice. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. There's always a choice. And the choice that you make after a life-altering event is very life-defining, because it's what I believe today. Those kinds of events in our life are the wake-up calls. They are our soul saying, okay, you're not getting this, so let us throw this in here in order to get you back on track for what you signed up to do in this lifetime. And some of us are really hard-headed, and some of us choose not to take the harder path, because you have to also remember that humans are very conditioned to the fight or flight, just the survival. And that's where the contentment that we mentioned in an earlier episode, the contentment comes in. Because when you get all your needs met, it's easy to be in contentment and not evolve your soul. So when we have the life event occur, it is a stimulus, because unfortunately as human beings, we don't force ourselves to continue to evolve usually. So, and we could have very easily, I mean, some people that believe in the soul contracts believe that we put these events in there as an option if we're not choosing on our own to evolve. Then we put these episodes in there which would be more catastrophic and get us to wake up and to work on ourselves. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can give you such a good example. I had a lady tell me, and I was working with her. She was counseling me, and it was the first counselor I'd ever been with in my, probably it was mid-40s. And she told me one day, she looked at me and she said, if you don't take care of yourself and pay attention to your environment, she said, you could easily end up where you can't go in public places. And my hard-headed personality, whatever you want to call it.
We're both kind of hard-headed.
I said, I went home thinking, because that was about all she said. And I went home thinking, well, that's the most absurd thing I've ever heard of, because I'd never heard of that. How in the hell could that happen to me? Well, lo and behold, a few years later, that's exactly what happened to me. And it's those kinds of things, because when it did happen to me, it laid me out flat. I couldn't walk by myself. You know, I've told you that before. I had seizures. It was terrible. But it was the only way I was ever going to continue to evolve my soul and do the work I was supposed to be doing. Because without that, I wouldn't be here where I am today. And I think that's what those events are in our life for. Absolutely. They're terrible and they're hard to deal with in the moment. But I do remember it was the oddest thing because even though I was having those 90-minute long seizures, there was like this calming force in me that was saying to me, this is necessary. You got to go through this. And it was like a little bit later, it was like that was one of the ways your body detoxed a lot of the toxins that it had to get out. That was one of the safest ways the body could do it. And because, I mean, they could hit me in a split second. And I was just at the mercy of whoever I happened to be with, which was usually my driver or my assistant, or I was in the apartment. Because I remember one day when a plane was coming and it put me into a seizure, I sat down in the corner of the kitchen next to the cabinet. And my daughter was taking care of me at the time, and she came looking for me because she heard the plane finally. And I'm already in a seizure before you can hear it. And she found me there on the floor, but there was no way, she can't move me or anything at that point. So it was quite an ordeal that we went through with that illness, because it didn't affect just me, it affected the whole family.
Well, that's another thing too. We talk about, and I define life-changing as a very serious type thing. But we have, I mean, honestly, every day we have multiple life-changing moments.
Oh, yes, that's for sure.
We just don't recognize them as
the choice.
life-changing. And, I think they call it the butterfly effect or whatever, where if you make the decision to turn left rather than turn right, it's a minor decision, but it can have a huge impact down the road.
I'll never forget watching that movie the first time because it made such an impact on me. And they referred to the butterfly effect, and it really rang so true to me. And I realized how important that was. And you're right. Every day, every choice we make has tremendous effect on people we don't even know about.
Yeah. But the life-changing effects I'm talking about, events, ones that we recognize.
So like a tsunami?
Tsunami. Hey, a simple one's a lost job.
Lost job? See, what I try to do with someone if they come in that situation is say, let's see what's right about this. Because more than likely, they hated that freaking job.
Yeah.
And it's a saving grace because they wouldn't leave it. The universe forced them out so they could get them moving again.
Well, you know what I do, and this is a lot based on my Christian faith, is I go back and think about every negative situation I've had. And I use negative very loosely.
Right.
Because I try not to make situations negative. But every issue, every storm I've gone through, and maybe I'm just fortunate, I've come out better.
Right.
And so, the question is, okay, I'm going through this BS right now, but when I get out of this,
it's going to be better.
It's going to be better. And what's going to be better about me when I get out of this? Because, and it's cliche and, a Christian belief that there are three types of people, or that you're in three stages. You're either coming out of a storm, going into a storm, or you're going through the storm. Right now, those are the only three choices. Because there's going to be storms. And like you said, it's your choice what you do. And to me, the first thing, the most basic thing to recognize is that you're going through the storm.
Yes.
It's not going to be there forever.
Right. And that's where people get caught up because that's what they feel when they're in the moment. And it's easy to feel that.
Yeah.
It really is. But the other thing, I think I've said this before, but when you're the victim survivor, the beginner on the healing path, the triangle is I'm a victim. Somebody did this to me. There was a perpetrator, and I'm waiting to get rescued. What you're saying and what we're talking about here, have a life event come. If you can move to the creator mode of your life, then you see it. You're the creator. There's a challenge in your life. And if you need help getting through it, you go get help from a coach, whatever kind of coach that might be. But it's a challenge instead of someone's doing something to me and you're being a victim of it.
Well, and I'm to the point, and I don't want to sound cocky.
Yeah.
It's just a fact. I can't relate. It's a weakness of mine. I can't relate to the one that you just pointed out that says, I'm waiting to be rescued.
Uh-huh. Oh, I can. I can because I was there. I was there. I was taught that. I was taught that everything that happened in my life was someone else's fault. I was taught that. And it was amazing to me when I turned that around and I became aware that, oh my God, that's not true. I'm responsible for what happens in my life. And it was also a huge awareness to me when I realized that it was not my duty, not my fault, how someone else felt. Because in believing that everyone else did everything to me, it was their fault, I was still responsible for how all these people felt. Mm-hmm. So that was a complete mix-up. No wonder I was screwed up.
Well, and I think taking ownership of that, too, is a good step.
Well, you have to. That's through the healing, though. You're unconscious of that until you step into the healing step.
And what I've noticed about me lately, and I don't know if I know I haven't always been this way, but I've noticed that what I'm doing now, I'm taking complete ownership of everything. And an example I'll use is I don't like everyone. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, to be quite honest, there's probably very few people that I do really genuinely like. But I can be tolerant, non-judgmental. Mm-hmm. I can be friends. I can deal with it. Mm-hmm. But there's one person in my life right now that is kryptonite.
Oh, so we do have the golden nugget.
That is absolute kryptonite to me. To the where I don't want to be in the same building as this person. Mm-hmm. But you know what? It's not his fault. That's my fault. He may be a tool. He may be a person I don't like. But I get to choose the way I respond to that.
True.
So I don't blame him one bit. I blame me because I'm not able to control my, I hate to say hatred, but...
Well, it's stored emotions, what I would call it.
It's the one situation I can't control my emotions.
Uh-huh. Well, then you use that to figure out what the stored emotion is, what the trigger is. Because there are instances where there are people that we should not force ourselves to be around.
Yeah.
In the case of a rapist. In my opinion today, you can forgive the rapist, but that doesn't mean you got to be buddies with them.
Yeah.
And so many people think they do. So many people think they do, and they think they've healed it, and they haven't. Mm-hmm. And they're just torturing themselves every time they're around the person.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's right. That's what I believe today.
But it is my choice to have such an emotional response.
That's the golden nugget.
That's my problem.
I don't know the circumstances, but generally what I would do with someone is that's the golden nugget of, okay, so when I see this person or this person does such and such and I'm instantly triggered, first you identify the emotion. What is the emotion I'm feeling? And if it is, let's just take hatred. Okay, so it's hatred. Okay, so what is it that that person does or did that triggers me to feel that way? And then what you do, see, this can be dependent upon whether this person's been in your entire life or not. Let's say they haven't. Let's say this is a new person in your life. Then you take that trigger, that emotion, you take the emotion and you say, when have I felt this before? When have I felt this emotion before? Because that's what the golden nugget's all about. And usually you can remember an episode earlier in your life where someone else made you feel that same emotion. And that's what we want to go back to, because then when we can remember that situation, sometimes there's one even earlier, but you keep going back till you get to the one that says, oh, it was because they wore a red hat and always slapped me. I hate red hats. Oh, and this guy wears a red hat. There's a connection, because as a child, if someone slaps you in the face every time that wears a red hat, you're going to hate red hats because you're a kid. You don't know what else to connect with that. So you have an unconscious belief that red hats are bad. That's a very simplification of how this works. Mm-hmm. But there is an underlying belief that creates the emotion of hatred toward this person. And that's what you want to find. That's what you want to get to. And sometimes that's hard.
Okay. But like in this case,
mm-hmm.
and I think in every case, I may be asking too much of myself. He shouldn't control my emotions, even if he is a rapist.
Uh-huh.
I'm in control of my emotions.
Exactly.
Except for him.
Okay. Well,
except for that kryptonite.
Okay. Well, that, in my opinion, for what I know of it, that tells me that you have stored emotion still in your energy field that's not healed, that he is triggering. So that
yes.
You have the awareness that, hey, you got something out in your energy field you need to take care of.
Completely agree with you.
And that is where illness comes from. And healing that stored emotion is what you still may not like the person and you still may not be around them, but you won't be triggered like you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't want to wait to be rescued.
Right.
From me feeling I need to handle that myself.
Mm-hmm. And that would be figuring out what stored emotion it is that he's triggering.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Again, makes a ton of sense.
Okay.
And it's fun.
Uh-huh. Because that's what, if we were just taught that, if we were just taught that, hey, when you get triggered, that is your stored emotion trying to say, take care of yourself. It's just a symptom. It's just a symptom of there's something stored in your energy field that needs to be healed. And if we only knew how to do that, we'd all be much happier and healthier and get along better.
Exactly, yeah.
Because there wouldn't be arguments and fights, because that's what stored emotion wants, because that's what it feeds off of.
And by the way, it's something you got to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I used to still, giving when people would ask me for advice about work, or for some reason people do ask me for advice.
Of course they do.
And, God, I've got a boss I can't stand. Should I quit my job?
Mm-hmm.
And my answer would always be, don't quit your job because you don't like your boss, because you know what? There's always going to be bosses you don't like.
That's exactly right. If a person doesn't like their job for whatever reason, to continue to see what's wrong with that job is not going to help them.
Yeah.
They have to start seeing and being grateful for what's right in that job, because that's creating a better future. As long as they're looking at what's wrong with it, they're living their past and they're going to recreate it and get, like you say, another boss they hate.
Yeah, because you're going to always have to deal with people that you don't consider perfect.
And you have to accept them, because that's who they are. They're on their path.
Exactly, and they have every right to be who they are.
Yep. Not your
And
business to change them.
and it doesn't help you one bit
Not at all.
to try and change them,
Not at all.
especially if they don't want to be changed.
Well, most of them don't.
No.
And you're in their business.
And the last thing you want to do is try and change them without them even asking.
And that's what a lot of people do. And I'll give you this one because it is more prone to women that can see potential in people and they're, oh my God, I can fix that man. I can make him what I want. And then they go about staying in his business instead of their own,
Yeah.
trying to change him and make him who they want him to be. It's not going to happen
And
unless the guy wants to change. And if he does, he's not going to like you being there doing it.
even if he wants to change, he doesn't want you to aggressively change. He wants that to come,
It's his own path,
from him.
his own heart.
We need to remember that topic.
I know, it'd be a good one.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kathy. The Soul Finder podcast is available on the Soul Finder podcast stream. It's also available on an online 24/7 audio stream. So we got multiple ways you can hear us, and quite a library at the website, kathydcarter.com. And you can also find out more about Kathy. You can read about Kathy's life. Kathy wrote a book.
Yes.
Is it just one book? Have you read it?
Yeah, it's just one book at this point. There's
Red wine and
red wine and cigarettes.
love it. Love it. All right, that's Kathy D. Carter, and it's been the Soul Finder podcast.